For 500,000 years, the Wrathborn Empire ruled the stars. Their fleet stretched across the galaxy, their armies crushed all resistance, and their throne stood unchallenged. They called themselves eternal, unbreakable, and feared by every race. To them, the past was nothing but dust. Among old legends was the name of a species long forgotten, humans. The archives spoke of them only as a curiosity, a small race that once reached the stars before being destroyed in ancient wars. The Wrathborn laughed at the idea that such fragile beings ever mattered. Extinct, they said. Buried in history, they said. Nothing but silence for 500,000 years. But silence has a way of hiding what waits to be heard. It began on the edge of Wrathborn space, in a quiet system where patrol ships drifted lazily. Nothing important had ever happened there. But on this day, something impossible appeared. The sensors screamed. The crew of the Wrathborn ship Vela rushed to their stations. "Unknown energy surge," shouted an officer. "Location," the captain demanded. The answer froze the entire bridge. "Right in front of us, Captain. It's forming out of nothing." In the middle of open space, reality itself seemed to ripple. A distortion grew larger and larger, glowing blue like a wound in the fabric of the stars. And then, with a silent flash, a massive warship materialized. It was black and sharp, its design unlike anything in the Imperial archives. Its surface was covered with scars, as though it had seen countless wars. Yet its engines burned with quiet power, steady and unshakable. The Wrathborn stared in disbelief. What is that?" whispered the captain. The scanners returned impossible results. The ship was ancient, yet alive. Primitive in design, yet far stronger than anything they knew. Its origin, unknown. But when the ship broadcast a signal, the bridge fell into silence. The transmission was simple, the voice calm and cold. "This is the fleet of Earth. We have returned." The crew froze. Earth. The word was alien to their ears, yet familiar from half-buried records. The human cradle world. A world that was supposed to be nothing but ashes. The captain laughed nervously, trying to hide his fear. A trick. It must be rebels using old myths. He ordered weapons charged. Green beams of energy lanced across the void, striking the mysterious ship. But when the light faded, the vessel stood unharmed, not even scratched. Gasps filled the Wrathborn bridge. Before they could fire again, the black warship moved. Its engines flared, and weapons came alive. The first barrage was like thunder. Railguns screamed, hurling projectiles faster than light. Missiles shot out in swarms, each one carrying devastating power. Bright lances of white energy ripped through shields as if they were paper. The Wrathborn fleet never had a chance. Ships exploded one after another, torn apart with precision and merciless force. The Vela itself shook as its hull was ripped open. The captain shouted orders, but his voice was lost in the chaos. The humans were not fighting like survivors. They were fighting like executioners. Within minutes, the entire Wrathborn patrol fleet was destroyed. Only burning wreckage remained, drifting silently in the void. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the black warship ceased fire. Its engines dimmed, and once again, a message filled the Wrathborn channels. 500,000 years of silence is over. Tell your masters, the children of Earth have awakened. And with that, the warship vanished into nothing. No warp signature. No trace. Just gone. When news reached the Wrathborn capital, the High Council at first dismissed it as rumor. They mocked the frightened survivors. Humanity, they laughed. A dead species cannot return. But when wreckage from the patrol fleet was examined, the truth could no longer be denied. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the galaxy. The voice on the recordings was unmistakably human. The Emperor himself listened in silence. He had ruled for centuries, never challenged, never afraid. But as the words echoed in the great hall, his claws tightened on the throne. The children of Earth have awakened. For the first time in 500,000 years, the Wrathborn felt something new. Fear. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Merchants, smugglers, and rebels all spoke the same words. Humanity has returned. Alien species crushed under Wrathborn rule felt a spark of hope. If the humans could strike back, maybe the Empire was not invincible. And in hidden corners of space, far from Wrathborn eyes, more shadows stirred. Because the black warship was not alone. The Wrathborn High Council gathered in the Great Chamber. The walls glowed with red fire, and the voices of 100 leaders filled the air. Reports of the strange black warship had spread across every system. Some called it a lie. Some said it was rebels using stolen technology. Others whispered the forbidden word, humanity. The Emperor silenced them all with one raised claw. Extinct or not, nothing challenges the Wrathborn. If this ghost ship is real, we will crush it. Prepare the fleets. Orders were given. Entire squadrons of destroyers and cruisers were sent to patrol the borders. The Wrathborn thought they were ready. They were wrong. At the edge of the Draxon sector, one of the largest Wrathborn patrol fleets waited. 30 ships, armed with the finest weapons of the Empire, moved in perfect formation. Their commander, Lord Verrick, stood tall on his bridge. He sneered when the alert came. Unknown contacts approaching. Good. Let these so-called humans come. We will make them an example. But when the shapes appeared on the scanners, Verrick's smile faded. It was not one ship. It was many. 10 black warships slid out of the void, their hulls gleaming with scars of ancient battles. Their engines burned steady and calm, as though they were not even threatened by the Empire's fleet. And then the voice came again, cold, human, and unshaken. You call yourselves rulers of the stars. But your reign is built on chains and fear. Today, the silence ends. Today, Earth strikes back. Verrick roared in anger. Fire everything. Burn them from the stars. The Wrathborn unleashed their fury. Green beams of energy cut through space. Missile swarms filled the void. The air on every bridge shook as cannons fired. But when the light cleared, the black warships were still there. Their shields glowed faintly, absorbing the fire as if it were nothing more than rain against steel. Then humanity answered. The first strike came like thunder. Railguns hurled slugs faster than thought, ripping straight through Wrathborn shields. Explosions tore through their cruisers, splitting ships in half. Missile swarms, old in design but precise in aim, hunted down destroyers and shattered them like glass. And the beams, white lances of energy, sliced across the Wrathborn lines, cutting through their proud dreadnoughts as if they were made of paper. The Wrathborn fleet broke apart in chaos. Shields failing. Engines gone. Whole squadrons destroyed. Lord Verrick screamed orders, but it was useless. In less than 10 minutes, half his fleet was gone. The humans moved with terrifying precision. They did not waste shots. They did not hesitate. Every volley was calculated, every strike exact. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Verrick's flagship was hit by a railgun barrage, tearing open its hull. Fire spread across the decks, and alarms wailed. Verrick collapsed to his knees as his ship broke apart. His last thought was disbelief. How can ghosts destroy us? And then he was gone. When the battle ended, the Wrathborn fleet was nothing but wreckage. Burning hulks drifted in silence. Only a handful of escape pods survived, carrying terrified soldiers who would spread the story. The humans did not chase them. They allowed survivors to flee. Because their message was not only in destruction, it was in fear. Before vanishing, the black warships broadcast a single transmission across the sector. For 500,000 years we waited. For 500,000 years we prepared. We have not forgotten the chains, the slaughter, the arrogance of the Wrathborn. Tell your Emperor, Earth has returned. Then, just as before, they disappeared into the void. No warp trail. No signal. Gone. The survivors returned to the capital, their faces pale, their voices shaking. They told the council of the battle. Of the black warships. Of the impossible weapons. The chamber fell silent. They were humans, whispered one advisor. The myths were true. The Emperor's claws dug into the throne. His voice was low, filled with both rage and unease. Then we will erase them again. If humanity thinks they can rise, we will show them the power of Wrathborn steel. But deep inside, the Emperor felt something he had not felt in centuries. Doubt. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, whispers spread faster than the Empire could control. Merchants told stories of black warships destroying entire fleets. Slaves on border worlds spoke the human name with hope. The Wrathborn called it rebellion. The galaxy called it justice. And humanity called it only the beginning. Because this was not their full strength. This was only the first strike. The Wrathborn Empire burned with rage. Their fleets had been torn apart, their commanders humiliated. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire's grip on the galaxy trembled. But behind the anger was something darker, fear. Whispers spread across the capital. Who were these warriors? Some claimed they were rebels with stolen Wrathborn technology. Others said they were ghosts of an ancient race. But in every corner, one word returned again and again. Humans. The High Council ordered spies, assassins, and data hunters to uncover the truth. If humanity had somehow survived, they wanted to know how. They wanted to know where. Far from the Wrathborn's grasp, on the hidden blue world of Earth, humanity stirred. The planet looked ordinary from orbit. A quiet world, covered in oceans and continents, its surface cloaked with strange energy fields that bent light and confused scanners. To the Wrathborn, Earth appeared lifeless, a forgotten rock. But below that illusion, cities burned with light. Towering spires rose into the skies. Foundries forged weapons that gleamed with deadly promise. Docks the size of continents held warships in slumber, waiting for the day they would rise. For 500,000 years, Earth had not died. It had hidden. Long ago, when the Wrathborn first spread across the stars, they came to Earth. They saw a young race, bold and defiant. Humanity resisted, but the Wrathborn were too powerful. Billions were slaughtered. Colonies were destroyed. The galaxy believed the humans wiped out. But what the Wrathborn never knew was that Earth itself had survived. Using cloaking technology beyond anything the Empire imagined, humanity sealed their home behind layers of void shields. Entire star systems were hidden from detection. Refugees from shattered colonies fled to these sanctuaries, swearing one oath: "We will never be prey again." Generations passed. Empires rose and fell. But humanity remembered. Every child grew up learning the stories of the Wrathborn conquest. Every worker labored to build the fleet. Every scientist poured their life into new weapons, new defenses, new strategies. 500,000 years of focus. 500,000 years of silence. 500,000 years of preparation. And in that silence, humanity became something terrifying. Deep inside Earth's command citadel, the Council of Admirals gathered. They stood in a chamber carved from black stone, lit only by the glow of star maps. At the center was Admiral Saren Kale, a woman whose eyes were cold as the void. She had been born knowing her duty, just like those before her. Her voice carried the weight of centuries. "The Wrathborn have seen only a fraction of our strength," she said. "One fleet, one battle. That was enough to shatter their pride. But this is not revenge alone. This is survival. The galaxy has forgotten humanity. We will remind them." Her words echoed through the chamber. No one argued. No one doubted. For every person in that room had prepared their whole life for this moment. In secret shipyards orbiting hidden moons, colossal warships waited. Some had been built centuries ago, upgraded across generations. Others were brand new, crafted with weapons that could pierce the heart of a star. They were not just ships. They were monuments to survival. Each vessel bore a name taken from ancient Earth: hope, vengeance, unity, eternity. Names that carried history, names that carried fury. And now, these ships were awakening. Far beyond Earth, Wrathborn spies intercepted fragments of human transmissions. Broken signals, encrypted codes, whispers of something vast moving in the void. One spy barely escaped with his life after sneaking into a hidden system. What he saw shattered his mind. Hundreds of warships. Thousands. Lined in perfect formation, their black hulls glowing with the light of silent stars. Training fleets drilling endlessly. Cities of billions working only for war. It was not a rebellion. It was an empire in waiting. When the spy reported back, the Wrathborn High Council was struck with horror. "They did not die," one elder whispered. "They grew stronger," another hissed. "They have been waiting for us," the Emperor finally said, his voice shaking with fury. The truth was undeniable. Humanity had not only survived, it had thrived in the shadows, turning their pain into power. Back on Earth, Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Dawn. The ship's massive cannons hummed with energy, its engines ready to carry it into the heart of the Empire. She looked out into the stars and spoke softly, her words carried across the fleet. "For 500,000 years, we waited. For 500,000 years, we sharpened our blades. Now the Wrathborn will learn what it means to awaken a sleeping giant. Humanity is not extinct. Humanity is eternal." And with those words, the hidden fleets of Earth began to move. The galaxy trembled as rumors spread faster than light. Entire slave worlds whispered the name of their saviors. Rebellions sparked in distant colonies, inspired by the sight of Wrathborn warships burning. The Wrathborn thought they had erased humanity. Instead, they had created their greatest enemy. The silence was broken, and war was only beginning. The Wrathborn Empire stretched across 1,000 star systems. For 10,000 years, it had ruled with iron claws. No species had dared to resist for long. Whole civilizations had been broken, chained, and forgotten. But now, something new spread through the galaxy. Something the Wrathborn could not crush with fire or fear. Hope. It began with whispers. A Wrathborn garrison whirled at the edge of the Trallon sector reported strange lights in the sky. Hours later, the entire fortress was gone, its defense grid shattered, its fleets destroyed. The attackers left no survivors, only a single message burned into the ruins. Humanity has returned. The council laughed at first. They called it a rebel trick, a minor raid. But the laughter ended when more reports came. Shipyards in the Zareth belt burned. Wrathborn mining colonies exploded under precise strikes. A major fortress world, once thought unbreakable, fell in less than one night. And everywhere, the same message appeared. Humanity. Admiral Seren Kale led the campaign with ruthless precision. From her flagship, the Eternal Dawn, she directed fleets that seemed to appear from nowhere, strike with unstoppable power, and vanish again before the Wrathborn could react. Her strategy was not random. Every attack cut at the Empire's strength, supply lines, fuel stations, communication hubs. The Wrathborn roared in fury, but they could not stop it. Their empire, once a mountain, now shook like a dying beast. On dozens of slave worlds, the strikes sparked rebellion. The Krell, once crushed under Wrathborn whips, took up stolen weapons and fought in the streets. The Varn, whose songs had been banned for centuries, raised their voices in war chants. Even small, broken species dared to rise, shouting the same name as their saviors. Humans! 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 For the first time, the Wrathborn slaves believed freedom was possible. Inside the Wrathborn capital, the High Council gathered in panic. The great chamber, once filled with arrogance, now echoed with fear. "Our fleets are collapsing," shouted one warlord. "Whole sectors are burning," cried another. "This cannot be humans. They were destroyed." But deep inside, every leader knew the truth. The fleets that had crushed their patrols, the weapons that shattered their fortresses, no rebel group could do this. Only an ancient enemy, forged in silence, could wield such power. The Emperor himself sat in silence, his claws digging into the throne. For the first time in his reign, he felt the weight of true danger. Meanwhile, humanity's fleets moved like ghosts. One armada struck deep into Wrathborn territory, destroying a star forge where thousands of enemy ships were built each year. Another slipped into the capital sector itself, shattering communication satellites before vanishing into the void. Every victory spread faster than light. Every loss tore the Empire's pride apart. To the Wrathborn, it felt as though the humans were everywhere. To the humans, it was only the beginning. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of her ship, watching as Wrathborn worlds burned across the star map. Her officers reported victory after victory, but her face stayed cold. "This is not yet the end," she said. "The Wrathborn still believe they are gods. We must teach them they can bleed." Her words carried through the fleet. The soldiers of Earth had been raised for this. Their grandparents, their ancestors, had sworn vengeance. Now, every strike was justice delivered after 500,000 years. In the Wrathborn capital, fear grew in the streets. Citizens whispered of human fleets drawing closer every day. Merchants refused to travel through the outer sectors. Even Wrathborn soldiers began to question their leaders. For an empire built on fear, this new fear was something they had never known. The fear of extinction. The Wrathborn High Council gathered one last time. Their voices shook, their plans fell apart. "They are too many," said one. "They strike too fast," said another. "They have waited 500,000 years," the Emperor finally growled. "And they have sharpened their blades for us. If we do not act now, the galaxy itself will turn against us." He rose from the throne, his eyes burning. "Summon the Grand Armada. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We will crush these ghosts before they consume us." But far from the capital, in the void between stars, humanity was already preparing for the next step. Their fleets were not finished. Their armies were not yet unleashed. The Wrathborn thought they were calling the final battle. But for humanity, the war had only just begun. And the empire that once made the galaxy tremble, now trembled itself. The Wrathborn had never gathered so many ships. From across the galaxy, fleets converged on the capital sector. Dreadnoughts the size of cities, cruisers bristling with weapons, carriers filled with fighters, an ocean of war. For the first time in their history, the Wrathborn united every blade of their empire. They called it the Grand Armada. To their citizens, it was proof the empire was unbreakable. To the slaves and rebels rising across the stars, it was a desperate gamble. And to humanity, it was the challenge they had been waiting for. Admiral Seren Kale stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn. Around her, the war map glowed with red markers, enemy fleets assembling in impossible numbers. But she did not flinch. Her eyes turned to the blue markers, each one a human warship waiting in hidden systems. For 500,000 years, humanity had built for this moment. Not for raids, not for defense. For war. "Signal the fleets," she said, her voice steady. "It is time." The human armada emerged from the void like a shadow lifted from the stars. Hundreds of black warships slipped into formation. Carriers released swarms of drones. Battleships powered their cannons. Flagships, each one larger than a Wrathborn dreadnought, burned with energy. The galaxy had not seen such power in living memory. At the center stood the Eternal Dawn, leading the way. For the first time in history, the galaxy would witness the clash of two titans, Wrathborn and humanity. The Wrathborn Grand Armada advanced with fury. Millions of fighters screamed through space. Energy beams lit up the darkness like 1,000 suns. The void itself shook with the thunder of their guns. The humans did not retreat. They answered fire with fire. Railguns hurled slugs at impossible speed, punching through Wrathborn shields. Drone swarms danced between enemy squadrons, cutting them down with cold precision. Human beam weapons tore through dreadnought hulls, splitting giants apart. The first clash was chaos, fire, and death. Entire Wrathborn fleets burned in minutes. Entire human wings vanished under overwhelming fire. Both sides bled, and the galaxy trembled. From his flagship, the Wrathborn Emperor watched the battle. His claws dug into the throne as he snarled orders. "Push forward. Break their center. Show these ghosts the power of Wrathborn steel." His voice carried across the Grand Armada, driving his commanders into a frenzy. The Empire had never lost before. They refused to believe it could lose now. But on the human side, Admiral Kale's voice was calm, sharp, unshaken. "Hold formation. Strike their flanks. Let them drown in their own rage." Her fleets moved with terrifying unity. Every ship fought as if guided by one mind. Every strike was precise. Every maneuver cut deeper into the Wrathborn lines. This was not the rage of revenge. This was the cold hand of a species that had prepared for 500,000 years. The battle raged for hours. Whole systems burned as planets were caught in the crossfire. Suns lit up with the deaths of fleets. The Wrathborn threw everything they had, but still humanity held. And then came the turning point. At the heart of the Grand Armada stood the Emperor's personal dreadnought, a monstrous ship larger than any other, armed with weapons capable of cracking planets. The Wrathborn believed it was unstoppable. Admiral Kale saw it differently. "Target the throne ship," she commanded. Human battleships shifted. Drone swarms moved like a black tide. Railguns opened fire, their slugs hammering the giant dreadnought shields. The Wrathborn Emperor roared, his ship unleashing storms of fire. Dozens of human ships fell, but the rest pressed forward, closer and closer. Finally, the Eternal Dawn led the charge, unleashing its full arsenal. White beams of energy cut across the dreadnought's hull. Railguns pounded again and again. And then, with a blinding flash, the Emperor's pride split open. The Wrathborn throne ship exploded, tearing apart in a storm of fire. Silence spread across the Wrathborn fleet. For the first time, they saw their Emperor fall. Their formation broke. Their courage shattered. The humans did not hesitate. They struck with final fury, driving the Wrathborn into chaos. Entire fleets fled. Entire sectors went dark. The Grand Armada, the might of the Empire, was broken. As the last Wrathborn ship scattered, Admiral Kale looked upon the battlefield. Wreckage drifted across the void. Both sides had paid a heavy price. Human ships burned alongside Wrathborn hulks. But in the end, only one side stood victorious. "Transmit to all channels," Kale ordered. "Let the galaxy hear." A single message was sent across every star system, every world, every station. The Grand Armada has fallen. The Wrathborn are broken. Humanity has returned. On slave worlds, cheers erupted. On rebel colonies, flags of freedom rose. The galaxy shook with joy. In the Wrathborn capital, silence and terror reigned. Their emperor was gone. Their fleets destroyed. Their rule collapsing. The war was not yet finished, but the outcome was clear. The Wrathborn's age was ending. And humanity's age was beginning. The Wrathborn capital world had never been touched by war. For 10,000 years, its skies were guarded by endless fleets. Its surface was covered with fortresses, cannons, and shields said to be unbreakable. To the Wrathborn, it was the heart of an eternal empire. To the galaxy, it was a symbol of fear. But now, for the first time, fire filled its skies. Human warships descended like a storm. The Eternal Dawn led the charge, its black hull glowing with the scars of the Grand Armada. Behind it, hundreds of Earth's warships poured fire into the capital's defenses. Orbital stations cracked under railgun strikes. Shield generators exploded in storms of light. The planet's proud defenders fought with desperate fury, but their spirit was broken. They had seen their emperor die. They had watched the Grand Armada burn. They knew they could not win. On the ground, Wrathborn citizens stared upward in disbelief. The invincible capital was burning. Some ran in terror. Others fell to their knees, whispering the name that haunted their empire now. Humans. Inside the command citadel, Wrathborn generals screamed at one another. Their voices shook with panic. "We must surrender," one cried. "Never. We will fight to the last," another roared. "They will erase us as we once tried to erase them." But deep down, they all knew the truth. Humanity had returned. Nothing could stop them. In orbit, Admiral Saren Kale stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn. The star map before her glowed with victory. The Wrathborn capital's defenses were falling one by one. Yet her face remained cold, steady. This was not just a battle. This was history. "Open a channel," she ordered. Her voice carried across the galaxy, broadcast on every frequency. It reached Wrathborn soldiers, rebel fighters, and enslaved people waiting in hope. "I am Admiral Saren Kale of Earth," she said. Her tone was calm but unshakable. "500,000 years ago, the Wrathborn came to our world. They burned our colonies. They slaughtered our people. They believed they had destroyed humanity." She paused, letting her words sink into the silence of the stars. "But we did not die. We endured. We built. We waited. For 500,000 years, we sharpened our blades in silence. And now, the silence is broken." Her eyes turned toward the burning planet below. "Wrathborn Empire, your time is over. The galaxy will never again bow to your chains. From this day forward, humanity has returned. And we will never be silent again." Her words spread like wildfire. Across slave worlds, cheers erupted. Chains were broken, flags of rebellion raised. Species long thought broken shouted with new hope. In the Wrathborn capital, silence followed her speech. The citizens knew. Their age of dominance was over. The final strike came swiftly. Human warships unleashed a barrage that shattered the capital's last defenses. The citadel crumbled. The Wrathborn High Council fell in fire. The empire that once ruled the stars was no more. When the smoke cleared, humanity did not take the throne. They did not declare themselves conquerors. Instead, Admiral Kale spoke again. "Humanity does not rise to enslave. We rise to free. The galaxy belongs to all who call it home. But never again will we allow tyranny to reign unchecked. We are not extinct. We are eternal." Her words became law. Her message became legend. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Worlds once bound in chains began to rebuild. Former slaves became allies. New alliances were forged under humanity's watchful eye. The Wrathborn, broken and scattered, faded into memory. Their name became a warning, a shadow of arrogance destroyed by patience and fury. And humanity became more than a race. They became a symbol. The species that vanished for 500,000 years had returned to claim their place among the stars. On Earth, the skies were filled with light. The hidden world that had been silent for ages now shone proudly. The fleets that once slept in secret stood tall, guarding not just their home, but the galaxy itself. Children grew up hearing the story, the silence, the return, the victory. Every word carried a lesson. Never forget. Never forgive. Never fall silent again. And so, when the galaxy looked to the stars, they no longer trembled at the name of Wrathborn. They whispered another name. They cheered another name. Humanity. The silence was broken forever. And the stars belonged to mankind once more.